Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Jukebox channel. Please like and subscribe if you like my content. So we're talking about, obviously, the big show last night at the Tottenham Hotspur football ground, where you had Tyson Fury headlining, and on the undercard, we had Conor Benn. So I think Conor Benn's come under a little bit of flack today for the actual fight. I watched it, and what I've got to say is this. I think he struggled a little bit. He got an emphatic victory, right? He did. He got a good victory. But I think he struggled a little bit against the Southpaw, Prograis. And given the fact that Prograis announced his retirement immediately after the fight, will give you some indication as to where his head was going into the fight. You can't have 1 foot in and 1 foot out against a dangerous opponent like Benn. Benn's young, he's hungry, he's strong, and he's physical. So you can't go into a fight like that with that kind of an attitude and expect to come out on top. However, it was pretty much one-sided. You know, Benn did what he normally does, but he wasn't his normal sparky, vibrant self. I thought it was just a little lackluster, given the fact he's dropped so much weight. And believe you me, that accounts for a lot. When you have to drag to make weight, when you really struggle to make weight, you're hungry 24/7. Boxers are like, we're animals at the end of the day. And you know, I saw one little clip of Conor Benn walking into somewhere, and he could smell food, and he walked in sniffing the air, going sniffing the food. That's how hungry he was. You know, which is why I believe the performance he gave last night, it was an okay performance. Wasn't a great performance. You know, is that performance going to beat Shakur Stevenson? Is that performance going to beat a Devin Haley or a Josh Kelly? Absolutely not. You know, so I don't really think he was up to speed in terms of his power, because, like I say, normally he's like a little buzzsaw, and he gets in and he throws 4, 5, 6 shots, and he'll do it again and again. You know, so there's still a lot more learning to come from Conor Benn. He needs to learn, you know, against a better caliber of opponent, because it seems like he's only fighting a certain type, an older guy or a guy that's not at a natural weight division. Boxing's all about timing, of course it is. It's all about promotion and matchmaking, of course it is. But you want to know that when you fight one of the big boys, you want to know you can hold your own. You don't want it to be excuses, you know, dead at the weight, or you know, I needed more fights, or I needed more time. You know, that's not what it's about. You know, he might have time now if he stops calling out all these world champions. That's if he plans on staying in the game for any amount of time. Then he should learn his trade, and learn his trade well, because he's got time on his hands. You look at it in a cold light of day. When you're a young fighter on the way up, you want to be fighting ex-champions. You want to be fighting ex-champions on your way up, gaining that experience. He got a good 10 rounds under his belt, Benn. He got a good 10 rounds under his belt. Did he set the world alight? Not really, because, like I say, Prograis had 1 foot in and 1 foot out. It didn't really offer too much resistance. I made him win maybe 2 rounds, or maybe 1 round, Prograis, and draw another round, and it was all Benn. Now, like I say, so on paper, it's a fair result. It's not a bad result. It's just a fair result. A good result is if he goes in there and wipes him out in 2 rounds. Then you start jumping up and down a little bit, and you go, you know what? You know, he's got something about him. He wiped this kid out. He was a former 2-time world champion, but he didn't. He went 10 rounds. So again, we look at it 2 ways. It's either a bad performance because he didn't blow him away, or it's a good performance because he got 10 rounds under his belt against the former champion. I'd be inclined to go with the first option. It ain't great, because there's the level of opposition of champions that are out there for Benn at either 147 or 154. That's welterweight, or the light middleweight division. The 154 is like middleweight. The champions that are at those weights are all pretty tasty and levels above Prograis. So, like I say, you can either say to yourself, it's a fair result, because he boxed a 2-time former world champion, but he didn't really set the world alight. So he's got the victory, happy days, got a huge payday, fantastic. But in terms of recognition and calling out the bigger boys, I'd be inclined to get a few more of them under my belt if I was Ben, because that performance isn't going to beat the bigger boys, because the bigger boys are younger, the bigger boys are more seasoned. You can't call out Shakur Stevenson at any weight division probably, because he's one of the best fighters on the planet right now. Unless you're just after the payday, unless you're just after another 15 million or another 20 million or whatever it is he may or may not get fighting one of the bigger boys like a Shakur Stevenson, you know. And then obviously at 154, you got Boots Ennis, you know, who's just head and shoulders above everyone, I believe, and I'm sure the world and his brother know he's head and shoulders above most other fighters. We've got Josh Kelly, the IBF light middleweight world champion. Again, fine champion, Josh Kelly, you know, and right now Ben's not ready for him right now. So I don't really know where Ben goes from here. Like I say, his ambition, his dream is to fight for one of the major governing bodies. And he keeps calling out the WBC as his main governing body. Now, it's nice to be young and have ambition. You know, I can remember being his age in my early sort of 20s and calling out everybody. In my own mind, I wasn't as bold as Ben. I wasn't going up to these guys and calling them out to their face. I didn't have that much courage. They might slap me down. But Ben will go up to your face and call you out and you know, and tell you he wants to fight. So you got to look at it and say to yourself, is he fighting these guys purely for the financial gain? We all want to earn money. Of course we do in the sport of boxing. But ultimately, you want to be able to call yourself a world champion, a bona fide world champion at the end of it. So it's not a question of watch this space, wait and see, because Ben needs a lot more seasoning, if he's going to really have any aspirations of becoming a bona fide world champion. And on given them what we've seen yesterday at 147, I mean, I listened to what he said the other day when he went, I might only have one or two more fights at 147, which will give you some indication as to where he is about making that weight. He didn't look good. He didn't look good. I don't think he looked good. Didn't look strong. There was no snap in Ben. You know, when you watch him fight, when you've seen his last couple of fights, there's plenty of puff. There's plenty of snap behind his shots. But that's when he's up at 160. You know, and where he can eat and drink what he wants. Can't do that at 147. And Prograis, to his credit, in I think one of the rounds, actually went to the midsection of Ben, went to his stomach. You know, where he looked drawn, he looked weak, didn't look strong. And yet I thought he actually hurt Ben, one or two of those body shots. I mean, Ben gave it back to him in kind, the body shots, he gave it back to him, of course he did. But, you know, if you've got a guy that's dragging to make weight, that's where you're going to go straight to, you know, because you know that his stomach must be so tight, so small, his stomach's probably stuck to his back, where he's not been able to eat properly for weeks and weeks and months even to make that weight. And he didn't look great at that weight. So he's got the victory. Yeah, when I say Conor Benn needs more seasoning, I simply mean that he should be fighting guys in and around his own age, where he gets a better gauge of what sort of stamina is required. There's still plenty of holes in his makeup. Carries his left hand way too low. He'd get counterpunched to the living daylights out of him if he fought Shakur Stevenson with that left hand so low. He starts with it here, starts with his hands up, all well and good. But as the rounds go on, that left hand gets lower and lower and lower. Like I say, I'm not even so sure. It may have been the fact that Prograis was a southpaw and it was a slight clash of styles because he couldn't get his jab on point, Ben. He couldn't punch over the right-handed southpaw stance. So, you know, all these things you learn as you go along. Maybe he needs a couple of more southpaws to fight before he thinks about fighting, you know, another southpaw, a younger southpaw who's got that snap, who's got that determination. But equally, with equal measure, I should say, you know, there's not a lot of head movement from Ben. Doesn't move. He doesn't really roll from the hips, waist, or shoulders. He's pretty straight up. You know, what he generally relies on is his power. You know, his power and his aggression, which wasn't really that much in evidence against Prograis. And I'll simply put that down to he wasn't that strong at 150. I think it's 151 he weighed, just above the welterweight limit and just below the junior middleweight limit. You know, he was just below that. So ideally, I'd forget the welterweights. Why go into a welterweight title fight potentially and get licked if you're not 100%? So, you know, the 147, he should blow that one away and not even contemplate it. But then with equal measure again, the 154s, the Josh Kellys of this world and the Boots Ennis of this world, they possess a whole different set of problems for him. A whole different set. You know, these guys are big, meaty, strong guys and can fight. Now, like I said before, it's okay calling these guys out. You know, if you're just going out for the money and just want to get paid, call them out. If the fight comes around and you get well paid and you still get licked, then you've got a stack of cash. Ultimately, though, Conor Benn wants to become world champion. He wants to be called a bona fide world champion. So he's got to beat a bona fide world champion in his own right, you know, for one of the legitimate belts. Again, I don't know where Zuffa or, you know, these people that he's fighting under their umbrella, I don't know what their aspirations are. Should Conor Benn have made a splash going into this fight? Because he had the perfect opponent in front of him. Now, he had Prograis hurt once or twice in the fight, hit him right at the end of the bell in one of the rounds, and his legs were completely gone. The next round, he should have jumped straight on him because he had him hurt, and he looked like he never recovered. So the question's got to be asked, did Benn have enough energy, enough snap, enough stamina to go after Prograis, given the fact the kid was hurt and he was there for the taking? You know, when Prograis announced straight after the fight that he was quitting, that tells you exactly where he was mentally going into this fight. You know, he had 1 foot in, 1 foot out. He boxed quite conservatively, Prograis, and he was allowing Benn to force the fight, and then he would respond in kind. But he was only throwing ones and twos, Prograis. There was no combinations for him. He didn't have it in him, didn't have it in his legs, didn't have it in his arms either. Like I say, there's still a lot of question marks to be answered. Still a lot of questions to be answered from Benn, because, like I say, he's got a victory, and you can look at it and see it for what it is. Say, would that victory beat any of the current welterweight world champions? Would that victory beat any of the current junior middleweight world champions? I think unequivocally we'll all be, if I take my gum shield out, sorry, we've got that one right. Unequivocally, if we would all be in agreement in saying absolutely not. If you like the content in my video, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's on the YouTube platform. I'd appreciate it. Follow me for more content, and I look forward to seeing you next time.